This is Andy Gutierrez from StarWars.com, and you are listening to Coffee with Kenobi with Dan Z. This is the podcast you're looking for.
This is Ashley Eckstein, Ahsoka Tano from Star Wars The Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi with Dan Z.
Joining us today for a cup of coffee to talk about, well, the rest of Star Wars Visions. Last week we talked about episodes 1 through 5. This week we're going to talk about episodes 6 or 9. We've got the Spy Dancer, the Bandits of Golak, the Pit, and Ow's Song. I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly. I have two amazing guest co-hosts joining me. First, from the Colby Cast, Colby Mead. Colby, welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Dan. I'm always excited to join you. I always love our conversations, and I'm really looking forward to this one.
Excellent. I'm looking forward to having you on very much. And I'm also looking forward to having, last week, we had David Motters on, and we brought in his co-host from Star Wars Reactions. This is a long-time friend of the show. Colby is, of course, as well. But Aaron, I think, has been with us since, the beginning. Of course, I'm talking about Aaron Harris from Star Wars Reactions. Aaron, welcome back.
Well, thanks for having me. I feel like I come home every time you invite me on, because I'll go all the way back to I started listening to episode 2. Actually, is when I found you guys, found you and Corey. So we go way back. Indeed.
Yes, I still remember meeting you at Disney Springs for the first time. Back in 2000, probably 16 or so.
Yeah,
15. Yeah, something like that. Very good. Well, we're going to do this. We're going to talk about Star Wars Visions. We're going to go through the second half of season 2, and we're just going to give one word for each individual episode. Overall thoughts, bring up a key idea, and then we'll give it a letter grade as we transition to the next one. The first episode is The Spy Dancer. This is one, it's about 20 years after the formation of the Empire. There's a group of aliens run this high-class club. It's really sort of a front for this rebel faction. Ultimately, at the end, there's an amazing twist. But Colby, let's start with you. What did you think of The Spy Dancer? Give me one word to describe it and overall reactions to it.
The Spy Dancer for me was enthralling. That'll be my word. I felt like this was my favorite story of these 4 episodes. And I'm sorry, Dan, did you say we're doing our letter grade now?
At the end of the conversation of each individual one. Yeah.
Perfect. That's what I thought. I wanted to make sure. Yeah, but I just thought I think that this story was, you mentioned the twist at the end, and that's what really got me. For animated short that's 15 minutes long, I just felt like it had such a comprehensive story to tell us with the backstory that they give us through the exposition in the beginning. I loved the over-the-top setting of that sort of like Cirque du Soleil or even Revenge of the Sith type opera kind of thing. So yeah, I just thought that it was just an enthralling 15 minutes, and I sat straight up on my couch when that twist came along. I really enjoyed it.
Excellent. Aaron, what about you?
Oh man, for me, the one word would be elegant. Everything about this episode was just completely elegant, from our spy dancers to just the setting inside the club was incredible. I don't know if it gave y'all the feeling, but to me, I watched this and I kept going back to movies like Casablanca, where you have that underground resistance working out of the club and fighting off the bad guys. And it really had that feel for me. And I really enjoyed Spy Dancer.
Excellent. My word would be unexpected. Unexpected for a couple of reasons. The twist we'll talk about certainly, but it's unexpected to me that I liked it as much as I did. When it started off, I thought, okay, I see what we're doing here. This is a front, and there's like a nightclub, and I don't really know how they're going to try to trick the Empire, but I find myself really, really liking this one. In the first few minutes, I didn't think I would. I thought I'd just be kind of like ambivalent and ready for the next one. But the characters, it's hard to go really, really deep with characters in a 15 to 18 minute episode that's a one shot that you may never see the continuation of the story again. But the punch at the end of the revelation, we'll just say it now, And obviously, if you've not watched the second half of Star Wars Rebels Season 2, please pause. Colby and Aaron and I will be happy to wait for you. We'll just keep heating up our coffee in the microwave until you're ready to join us. But when the reveal that this woman, she hates the Empire so much, we see a flashback that she has lost her child. And at first I was unclear if she was the child that was being taken or if it was her child that was being taken. But then it became very, very clear as it goes along. But her name is Loie, I believe that is her name.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And when it's revealed that this child is still alive, but it is very different than when she last met her, I was completely blown away by it. So, Colby, we'll just start with you. Is that the main thing you want to talk about, the ending, or where do you want to take this one?
Yeah, the ending really, I think is where I would go with it because it made a really big impact on me. But before that, I'll add another word, or maybe just for alliterative purposes. I felt like the storytelling in this was efficient. It really packed in this whole little mini story from beginning to end. And I felt, it's funny, Dan, that you mentioned it, because I sort of had the same reaction going into it. Like, okay, what is this about? The animation is a little bit, okay, no, I'm not sure. And as it went on, I started buying myself into it more and more. And by the effective storytelling is what made me invest so much, because of those flashbacks, because of these characters that we had just a few minutes with, but we knew that they had a purpose, they had a direction. We knew that this was their last performance before the jig was up, for lack of a better phrase. And then when she went to go basically take care of this monster that she felt, she was seeing in front of her, she couldn't do it. She stopped herself. And then the action, of course, was cool afterwards. But the thing that stuck with me was the very, very end, when she gave him sort of that medallion that she had around her neck. And then we saw him on that ship. We knew she had been throwing trackers out there. And then that last shot where he just puts his hand down and it shows us that he's holding that medallion with a tracker on it. And then you hear her words saying, I've found a way back to him and he's found a way back to me. I just felt like it was such a big exclamation point at the end of this episode, such an emotional punch, and it gave me hope. And that was my favorite part about it, was there could be a reuniting in the future. Will we ever see it? Who knows? I don't need to see it because I know that seed is planted.
Yeah, well said. Aaron, what about you? What jumped out for you, or what key themes or ideas you think are important to chat about here as we're having our coffee?
Well, I want to jump on what Colby said and say I do need to see it, because I need that redemption story to be completed. This was just such a fantastic episode, and like you guys said when I first started watching it, I was like, okay, this is going to be interesting, and to be honest, and I've said it on our show, and with the first season of Visions, I was not a fan. It did not. I watched it; they were okay, but it did not appeal to me. These stories this season have been really appealing to me, and this one, it started off slow. I wasn't sure, but then it really sunk its hooks in and drug me in wholeheartedly, and really connected. That's one thing that Star Wars has been able to do with their animation. We've seen it in Clone Wars, Rebels, even Resistance, even the Tales of the Jedi. They take these small windows and they cram so much information and detail into such a small package that you can unpack it forever. And there's so much in these episodes that's incredible. As for Spy Dancer, I mean, to me, the twist at the end, finding out that it's her son and dealing with that hope is now still alive. She was ready. She had given it all up and she was just gone. And then she finds out her son is still alive. Then you see that rekindled hope and passion for her journey and her mission at that point. And it's just, it's reinvigorating. I loved it.
I love that too. And what I really like about this one, and I think it's the only one, and just sort of running through them in my brain, I think it's the only one that doesn't involve the Force. I mean, unless Loie was using the Force to sort of jump around, but I like the Cirque du Soleil comparison. That I think. Did you say that, Aaron?
No, that was Colby.
Colby. Yeah, I really like that, Colby. I thought that was quite apt. But this isn't about. This is taking a theme of Star Wars that doesn't involve the Force or good versus evil so much as it has to do with redemption of your own spirit. I mean, she instantly goes from hate and fully intending to commit murder to absolute unadulterated love, like love that wants nothing in return, unrequited love. She, instead of killing this man, she hugs him and hugs him tightly, and he just, his arms are straight. He doesn't. I was so afraid at first he was going to fight back, but he doesn't. He just sits there frozen, and while they don't, she I don't even remember what she says, but she doesn't. I don't think you can fake that kind of love. I don't think you can fake that kind of emotion, and he senses it. And it's not because of the Force. It's because of the bond between a mother and her son.
Yes.
It's just so beautiful. And a key idea from Star Wars is family.
Yes.
A strange family, found family, bloodlines, all of that. And this just tackles it in a very unique way. Excuse me. And the fact that it's unexpected means so much to me, because as I said last week, I say almost all the time when I talk about stories, you can take these formulas and archetypes and ideas, but when you give them a refresh that doesn't feel like a gimmick and make this authentic emotion that is evoked through the pathos between you as a medium, as a camera, to us as an interpreter, as a reader, as a purveyor of culture and storytelling, you just got something lovely. And I was so impressed with how it was performed.
If I could add to that scene that you're talking about specifically, as impressive as everything you just said, the visuals are right there too. Because if you notice, the entire episode took place at night. Now, most of it was in a building, but we did see an outside shot in the beginning. It was nighttime. People are arriving. This whole thing unfolds. And then when they're up on that roof, that glass roof, and this man is just, he's attacking, and she's just dodging and deflecting, and will not, now that she knows who he is, won't fight back. But when she does give him that embrace, completely disarms him, and you notice that the sky is turning bright, and that's when the light is coming out. So all of the themes that we're talking about, the lightness of this reunification and this not a full reconciliation, but at least a disarming of the violence, is all at nighttime. And then when that comes, we start seeing the light, and that's just great storytelling.
Yes, absolutely. Well, let's give letter grades for this one. I know we've got a couple to get through. Aaron, we'll flip it and we'll start with you. What letter grade would you give for this episode?
For this episode, for Spy Dancer, I would go with an A- on this one. It was really good, really good. I really enjoyed it.
Excellent. Colby?
Yeah, this is definitely in the A range. I'll echo Aaron's idea with that A-, just because we have one that's coming down the road that I'm saving something for. But yeah, absolutely enjoyable 15, 16 minutes, and it definitely deserves high marks.
Excellent. I'm going to go a little higher. I'm going to give it an A, a nice solid A, because I had such a visceral reaction to the ending. I really think it was executed so incredibly well that I was quite happy with it. I think it's a nice solid A. It's one of the top ones, I think, from this season for sure. So now we move into the Bandits of Golak, and this is it's from Ishan Shukla. The entire thing sounded like it was from the continent of India, perhaps. Just the accents, the animation itself. Interested in seeing what you both thought. Aaron, this time we'll start with you. One word to describe it and overall reactions.
Oh, one word for this one. Oh man, they're exciting. This one was exciting, with the action, and then the Inquisitor showing up. I mean, there was just something exciting about this episode that kept me at the edge of my seat while I was watching it. The animation was beautiful, story was good. It was just an exciting one to watch. I was definitely on my list of ones that I will be going back and rewatching over and over again because I enjoyed it that much.
Colby?
I'm stuck between two, and I'm thinking that I'll just reach over, look over my shoulder and copy from your paper for the spy dancer and go with unexpected. Although I was split between that and sad, because I did find it sad. But I did also find it unexpected because of the animation. I felt like the animation was just so uniquely beautiful. I don't know that I've ever seen this style of animation in anything. And I'm not going to try to be an expert in animation, but this is definitely a unique look. It also told us this incredibly efficient story. Where it ended was so different from where it started, right? And Dan, you hit the nail on the head with the accent and the look, because 88 Pictures is the studio, and they're based in India. So this is an Indian production. And I loved that aspect. Absolutely loved it.
Yeah, I would call this, my one word for this would be unexpected, because I didn't expect the animation style. I wasn't because, Star Wars Visions, the first season was all anime, right? Mm-hmm. And this is quite far from anime, but the imagination and the fresh look that we got is seeing Star Wars through culturally different eyes, but still the same themes and big ideas that I think has made Star Wars reverberate through our collective consciousness as fans of this franchise and these stories overall. It was pretty masterful the way that it was done. So I would call it unexpected because there's some twists that happen that are unexpected. My reaction to it was unexpected, and the characters were certainly a bit more unexpected too. But these are all, as you said, Colby, I loved that aspect of it, and I found it fantastic. One of the main reasons I love teaching mythology is I want my students to understand that there's so much more to culture than just our little neck of the woods, right? There's just so many things out there for us to enjoy. And this is a great one I'm going to show them, because I want them to see again, hey, here's a twist on Star Wars through a different lens. And all of these are from different studios around the world. But this one was just so refreshing to me, and I really appreciate that. I'm sort of belaboring the point, but you get the idea. Aaron, what themes would you like to bring up for this episode, The Bandits of Goluk?
Oh, man. For me, this one was all about family. Because we have the brother protecting the sister, trying to guide her, to keep her safe, protect her from any and all harm as they're on the run. They're not sure what's going on with their family. They just know they need to get to this one spot to be safe, and he's going to do anything in his power to do so. So that bond between brother and sister in this episode really made it very powerful for me, because we see them kind of starting off on that train, and there's a little giggling, a little laugh. All right, they got their little secret handshake. Good job. But then things get intense when the trouble starts. They start being chased by the Imperials. The Raiders show up. They end up in this strange village at this strange location, and then of course the Inquisitor shows up. It's all about protecting his sister and what he can do. And it's all because she's a child of the Force. I mean, she is strong in the Force. We see her steal the flute from his bag as he's walking away, pulling it over. plates of food flying through the air. I mean, it was perfect. Then, of course, the surprise with the little old lady whipping out 2 Ahsoka sabers and going all Yoda, i.e. Attack of the Clones on this Inquisitor was just was just awesome. But to me, the bond between that brother and sister, and then him realizing at the end, I have to let you go to keep you safe. The best thing I can do for you is to let go. And it was heartbreaking to see them have to split at that point, but it was also heartwarming as well, because she's going to be in a better place, and he is, as sad as he is to let go, he's got that flute popping up at the end. Just he changed his outlook almost. He smiles and he starts playing the flute. But yeah, their relationship to me just made the episode.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Colby, happy that you get to follow that one instead of me. What do you think?
Well, I have my own little rant, I think, that I've been spinning in my little brain here. And it really comes down to, I think, where I am as a Star Wars fan. And I'll tell you, on the episode, straightforward on the episode, this one had my favorite visuals of the series. I thought the slow motion fighting gave us an opportunity to appreciate the look that they were of this animation. And as soon as we saw that the villain, I don't know about you guys, but I knew immediately it was an Inquisitor, and we didn't have anything really to go on except for the design of his costume. And then they showed him from the back, and we saw the unique lightsaber, the Inquisitor lightsaber. But the first time you see him, we didn't see that. So those are things I really enjoyed about. I enjoyed the train sequence that gave us real Book of Boba Fett, Tatooine vibes. And maybe one of my favorite parts of the episode was when they arrived at their train stop. I don't know about you guys, but they walked into a marketplace before they get to the village. And I'm like, that looks just like the marketplace on Batuu.
So much. Yeah.
I was so excited. So excited when that's. But here's my thing with this. And it's not a negative for the episode. This is where I am as a viewer. And that's now an older dad with 2 sons who are in their 20s. And I'm seeing them become independent. I'm seeing them becoming their own people and preparing to go out and live their own life. And there's an element of goodbye in that. That's probably why I've suckered them into recording a podcast with me so I can document our conversations. But I just found the separation of this family sad. And I can't say that it was one of my favorite parts of the episode and of the series, because they had already alluded to the fact that they were separated from their papa. Then the Inquisitor made a point to say that he went through and just torched a bunch of villages. So we're assuming now, if Papa had survived the first thing, he probably hasn't survived that. And then the young girl is going to go with the Jedi, to walk her own path. And it's that it left the brother alone. And I felt that it was just so sad to end things that way. And I really made me appreciate how much emotion it brought when that flute came back up from the water. So he at least had that piece of her to play songs and to think of her when he has that. And it just made me think, when I was younger, one of the coolest things I thought about Jedi was that you go off and you go on this big adventure and you're away from your home and you're being trained by these expert magician, sorcerers, Jedi. Now I look at it and I go like, don't take these people from their families. Find a way. Luke Skywalker found a way. You have to I want to see that closeness and those bonds. And I know that that's where I'm watching it from now as a father of 2 boys that are just getting older. And it's an interesting perspective shift.
No, I agree. The ending left me feeling really yucky, really empty, because I thought while we only got little snippets of this relationship between brother and sister, it's Shah Rukh and Rani. And Charuk is the boy, right?
The brother, yes.
The brother, yeah. When before we get to that, it's kind of long. Like there's this big train sequence. Apparently, the only thing anybody eats in this world is lollipops, which is really not the worst thing. I don't know how much protein is in them, but they there's this big escape. Kind of reminded me of Indiana Jones a little bit with the train stuff. Mm-hmm. I found myself constantly frustrated with Ronnie that, like, was it not emphasized to her? Look, keep the force stuff on. Keep the telekinesis on the down low because you're going to get us killed. But it's almost like, I don't know. There's like sympathy there. There's understanding that. I mean, he's having to do like a very much an adult role in a when he's a kid himself. I don't know his actual age. When they finally get to this village, first of all, I like the little horse race sequence. They weren't horses on the captions that said the name of those creatures. I can't remember off the top of my head what they were, but I thought that was fun. But when we eventually get there, and there's that reveal, like you said, Aaron, of the it's almost like a Ahsoka lightsaber thing. That was a great sequence. And I love seeing a wise older Jedi that's a female that is very steeped in her Indian culture and how she's dressed. And it's just, I thought that was really an awesome choice. At the end, I put on the Christian metaphor hat and I see the water parts and these stairs go down. It reminded me of the book of Exodus. Yep. And Moses parting the Red Sea. I'm sure you're both nodding your heads. Yep. So I'm assuming you caught that as well. But she has to go to freedom by parting the waters and getting to safety because, the Empire or evil doesn't stop. We know this to be true, both in fiction and in reality. So the fact that they have to separate from each other, that bothered me too. And it just, again, reminds me over and over again, you said, Colby, that Luke, finds a way. I still feel like the attachment idea is so much more complicated than I think we ever realized in 1999 when George Lucas introduced it to us in Star Wars Episode 1, The Force, the Phantom Menace. So it's challenging. And I found myself feeling really kind of empty and yucky and it's sort of ironic. This is time of graduation month. The month of May is the time of graduation for a lot of families listening to the show or not listening to the show, just people in general. Your kids are growing up. I have a coworker who has an 8th grader and a senior in high school, and they're both about to graduate and go to different sections of life. That's a lot. Yep. So losing your kids, but finding something greater is very challenging for me. So I also like the animation of this one. It's not one I'm going to watch as much because, while I appreciate and understand the idea, and I think it's very well told, it's tough. But I want to talk about the flute. Okay. So what do you think the symbolism is of this flute? Because they make a big deal about this flute. It comes back at the end. And then the older brother, Charuk, plays it as sort of the thing ends. What did you make of the flute symbolically, either of you?
Oh, feel free to take that one, Aaron. I feel like you got something good really cooking up.
I know I just kind of threw that at you. I don't know that there's a right answer. I mean, honestly.
Yeah, I was going to say it's one of those that's open to interpretation depending on what your views are of the episode. For me, the looking at the flute and seeing how it was played in the story, we see Ronnie's reaction when she first sees it in his bag. She lights up. She's happy. She's ecstatic. We see it at the end when it pops up out of the water, and we see the brother. His I'm blanking on his name, but he lights up. He smiles. He goes from sad to a smile and almost a sad joy. I would describe it as he picks it up and starts to play as he walks away. I would say the flute would represent hope because it's their hope. It's a part of their family. She sees it. That's Papa's. I want to play that. It reminds me of Papa. I got hope to see Papa again. It's hope. Then at the end, it pops up. He takes it. He starts walking away, playing it as he's smiling. It's hope that she is on a right path to a better life where he is, and he knows she is going to make it because he's got the flute. To me, it's a symbol. It's a symbol for their family of hope.
This is Vanessa Marshall, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi.
I love it. I think that's quite insightful. Colby, anything you want to add to that, or how did you interpret it?
No, I just think I made a really good decision having him do that. If I could just tell you, Aaron, what that does for me about the end of the episode is it gives me hope. That there is now a bit of a tinge of hope now where I hadn't quite seen it, because I did reference that he does have that now with him. But what that represents, as you're explaining it, I love that, because she is more secure. She's safe. And as a father who loves his children, and, Charuk is not her father, but is definitely a father figure for her. Mm-hmm. We want them to be safe. We want them to be successful. And as sad as it is for him to say goodbye to her, he knows that she's in better hands than what he can do to take care of her. All I can say is thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
That's very cool. I actually did a little digging about instruments and flutes. For Native American culture, flutes are entertaining. They're fun to listen to. They're very easy to play. When you're a child, you might learn musically how to get started with a recorder, right? But a flute also has like this sort of calm, relaxing quality. And there are different professors who have done studies and using the flute to help deal with physical and emotional healing or trauma. So I think it's quite lovely that at the end of this thing, Charuk plays this thing to just sort of soothe his soul. It reminds him of his sister, who was very playful. But also, I mean, that's trauma right there. Like they almost die. Their lives are threatened repeatedly. And then he uses it as a way to calm himself and also have a connection with his sister. And I think that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I mean, and I like what you're saying there, because how many times do people go through trauma and music is part of the healing process?
That's right.
It moves them along, and I think that's what we're seeing happening for Charuk. There is that music is healing his broken heart of letting his sister go, and so it's healing him and giving him that hope to move on, and that hope that she's going to be fine, and that she's in the right place.
Agreed. So let's do some letter grades on this one. I'm so torn. From an emotional perspective, because it's a little bit depressing, I want to say B+, but I also feel like I just got to suck it up. It can still be an A, but not necessarily be something I have to watch over and over again. So I'll give it an A- because of the quality of the animation, because of the different cultural approach that I thought was quite illuminating, the symbolism of the flute and the parting of the waters, and the legitimate love and connection that the brother and sister have. I'll give it an A-. Colby,
I'm good with that. I was going between a B+ and an A-, and I mean, our conversation here, as it happens quite often, right, with this format, which I think is brilliant. Many people change their ideas and their mind based on things that are talked about when we take the time to look at the details. So yeah, A-, because of the cultural aspect. I think, again, I said it was my favorite visually, and I just think it's so beautiful. And obviously the depth that we just got into. So yeah, I'm good with A-.
Aaron.
Very good. Very good. For me, there's a couple things I gotta go through in order to grade this. Of course, like y'all said, this is visually stunning. It's probably the most unique one I saw. I'd never seen animation like this. Absolutely spectacular and beautiful. The amount of random creatures throughout this episode was absolutely incredible. The story of the brother and sister, the old lady Jedi, the Inquisitor, the relationship, the hope, everything about this episode to me screamed Star Wars, and it screamed excellence. For me, and I've never done this on any short I've ever graded, but for me, this was an easy A+.
Wow.
Hands down.
Excellent.
This was
Wow.
a tremendous episode. Absolutely my favorite of the series.
Dang. Well, that's great. I'm so happy to hear that. Wow. Okay. So let's transition. We're going to go into the pit, not actually into the pit. That would be really depressing. This is Leandre Thomas and Justin Ridge, who Justin Ridge has done a lot of stuff in the world of animation. But this is about a group of slaves who are forced to dig a giant pit that becomes larger and larger and deeper, which you don't even realize until we're almost at the very, very end. Apparently, it's been going on for years. The stormtroopers then free the prisoners, but absolutely abandon them. This is a tough one for me. I'll just start on this one. My one word for this one is, I kind of want to say ouch or oof, but I feel like that's just too silly. And this one was difficult for me. I'm gonna use the word depressing, even though it has a hopeful ending and some nice things. The murder of this brave boy, who's so captivating, really, really bothered me. It really is. I just thought, oh gosh, the way they were swinging him back and forth, I just found it really, really tough. So that I'm just going to start there. Colby, what about you?
I'm going to go with powerful, and for similar reasons with what you just said. But I think the overall message, the visuals, the perspectives that it's showing, it's a very powerful episode. And powerful can mean good and difficult, right?
Yep.
And I'm definitely using it in that sense.
Okay, Aaron.
Oh man. One word to describe the pit. It was a pit. I mean, it was probably the hardest episode to watch. So if I had to pick one word, I would have to piggyback with you. It was depressing to watch this episode. It was heartbreaking. I think that's the better one I want to go with. It was heartbreaking to watch this episode, to see what these people were put through, and to see them get that surge of hope as they're released, only to realize that they're in the pit of despair, with nowhere to go. And it was just, it was heartbreaking to see, and hard to watch. Yeah, I'll go there.
Okay. Heartbreaking is that, and I didn't realize, I'm looking at a summary, I didn't realize that Crux, the man who was murdered at the end, I didn't realize he was the father of Livy. I thought it was like an older brother. You just seemed.
Oh, I didn't know that either.
No, I didn't realize that either.
Yeah. I don't know if that's an accurate summary. I guess we'll find out and see. The challenge for me is that this one felt the most realistic because we know about the ugliness of slavery worldwide. Yes, our country has got a disgusting, deplorable history of slavery, but it's all over the world and it's still actively going on. When I saw this man who was so brave, who climbed out of this pit, sort of like The Dark Knight Rises,
yes,
but with a lot more cost involved. And then he does this brave thing, and he finally gets these upper class people in his clean, futuristic city to pay attention. And then he's unceremoniously stunned, and before he can even get himself awake, he just gets thrown into this thing. It just made me so angry because I know stuff like this happens.
Yeah.
And so it was harder to escape. Star Wars is a massive escape for so many of us, and I didn't quite escape here. That being said, the stuff with Livy, everyone working together, the love. There's one quick sequence where this child is like laying really close to either an older parent or a grandparent, keeping them close and holding them tight. And I just thought that's what I would be doing with one of my kids, just holding them close and trying to love the fear out of them, which is not possible. But when you're a parent, that's what you think about when your kid's in pain, right? And then this little girl is super brave at the end. And there's also this really interesting sort of weird stuff with this animal that shows up, almost like a weird armadillo squirrel thing. That's probably the best sentence I've ever said in my life. And it just digs these random holes, which create footholds. There's also a post-credit sequence in this where that thing is crawling around, and there's like this mural of this little girl with the man on top. And at the end, we find out that she's force sensitive. That didn't really work for me. Only because I expected it. There's nothing wrong with it. I mean, it works. She's the one who says, follow light, be the light. What is the actual thing that she chants? It's follow the light. Follow the light. And that worked. I mean, but the light could just be your inner light, right? I mean, obviously it's the force too. Follow your conscience is, I feel like, what they were saying more than anything else. But when it's revealed that she's force sensitive and she can make the crystal float, it was a nice animation effect. But I don't know that maybe it was too late for me to have hope in this. And even though they were all rescued and the ship comes down and rescues them, it was quite nice. But I don't know, just problematic. Again, very well done, beautifully presented, very, very powerful. Obviously, the emotion really got to me. But I don't know, challenging.
One of the things that I immediately noticed it was the animation, and it reminded me a lot of Avatar: The Last Airbender. And if you know me long enough, I will take any chance I get to recommend that everyone should watch Avatar: The Last Airbender. That is one of the best series I've ever seen in my life, and the ending is the reason. And now that's all I'll say, because we're talking Star Wars, not Avatar. But the animation is very similar, and even that little animal, Avatar: The Last Airbender, has a whole bunch of funky animals throughout the whole series, and it always brings a smile to my face. So there was a lot of things that reminded me of Avatar: The Last Airbender. But that's just an observation. A couple of the things that you said that I sort of keyed into. First, I was reading about this episode on StarWars.com. They actually have a nice feature about Leandre Thomas, and I'm not sure if either one of you guys have seen it, but he goes into what the inspiration of this was, of this episode. And he said that he was talking to his partner, and it was during 2020 in the pandemic. And he basically said, in real life, he felt like we've all been thrown into this pit, and we're yelling, and no one can hear us because everyone else is too far above on the surface. And this pit is something we've been pushed into. So if that's not, just found its way into art, that is really the impetus behind this episode. So it came from a hard place, the pandemic, right? 2020, all the chaos that was happening that year. That makes a lot of sense that this episode would sort of translate those difficulties into a visual storytelling sense, right?
Yeah.
Now, and when you hear him say that, I mean, it's just so obvious, right? When you see this, when you watch this episode, a couple of things that you mentioned that I sort of looked at differently was, first, the Kyber crystal with the little girl. When I watched it, I also felt the same thing. Oh, she turned it blue, and it's standing up on end, and it looks like she's got some force abilities. On a second viewing, though, I sort of looked at it as, if that is her dad, we're just going to say Crux. It almost felt like Crux was there with her, giving her like, I'm not gone. It was terrible what happened, and I really wish it hadn't. But that Kyber crystal scene sort of told me symbolically, I'm still here with you. I can still be with you. Sort of like the flute, right? With the bandits of Golak. The mural I thought was pretty cool, because you saw from the other side, the man was, painting this mural, and then they never paid it off until the post-credit scene, which I'm always a fan of a good post-credit scene. So the fact that they went back and they showed that it was a nice fitting end to it. But the thing I loved the most was the message of perspective, because when the whole story is told from their perspective, and it's just hopeless.
Mhm.
And then Crux gets out of there. He gets into the city that they've built, and you just see this opulence and this indifference. But then the message of follow the light, I really do feel like it's follow your inner light. Do what is right. And the citizens of those people ended up doing that. And for me, it helped balance out the heaviness and the sadness that came with the rest of the story.
Yeah. Aaron, any last minute things on that?
Well, the one thing that I pulled out of this episode was, we have this utter despair going on outside this extravagant city, and the people in the city are absolutely clueless to what's going on. And then, of course, we have Crux, who makes his escape, gets to the city, gets on his podium, preaches to the crowd, and then, of course, is run off by stormtroopers before he's captured and executed. But that got the word out. And it to me, this was just a defining moment of, you can't fix what you don't know is broken. They did not know there was something broken. And as soon as they found out, you saw the people stand up and fix it. And I loved that message of the community coming together and fixing what they did not know, fixing what was broken, marching out to the pit, taking the ships down, rescuing everybody, and going on. I loved that message. I'm with you, Dan. Her being force sensitive right there at the end, to me, honestly, just took away from the episode.
Yeah.
Because you built this whole episode on him doing everything he can to get out and get help, and then to just have a force sensitive person right there show up at the end, you're just kind of like, really? She can float the crystal. She could have floated him out. I mean, there's just no. It didn't work for me. It was cute. It was beautifully animated, but it just didn't. That part just did not work for me.
And I think that's the challenge I had, because this whole thing was very realistic and very heavy and psychologically challenging. And then the force thing makes it fantasy. And this didn't feel like fantasy. It felt like the cruelty of humanity and the awakening of other people to find. And like you said, you can't help what you don't know about. And that was, I almost wish, I don't know how you could have ended it. Maybe her continuing to inspire the people without the force. I don't know. These storytellers are far better storytellers and much smarter than I am. But that just, for me, that's just how it landed. So, Aaron, give me your letter grade for this one.
This one for me, I would have to go with a B on this one.
Okay. Colby.
First, I think you should just get Mr. Thomas on the show and ask him about that last part. See what was on his mind. Make it happen, Dan. Make it happen.
I will.
I'm going to go with an A on this one, just because I enjoyed the animation as much as I did, and I do look at that last scene more as his light lives with her now, rather than a force sensitivity type of deal. Although I absolutely see both of your points, so I don't necessarily have as much of a challenge with that one. And that for me was the message of hope coming through. Like I'm still here with you, so I really like that. So I'll go with an A.
I like that too, and they're all connected through following their own inner light. But I'm still going to give this one a C+, purely because even though it has a message of hope, I wasn't hopeful. And they don't all have to be. They don't all have to follow that formula. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying, for me, as an individual viewer with my own sort of predilections of what I enjoy from a fictional standpoint, this one was hard for me. Very much respected. I don't shy away from that kind of stuff. But it's just not it's just not my diet. So it's a C+ for me. So we've got one more. This one definitely is a different tone. This is called Au's song. This is one about the Sith are extinct. The people of this mountain planet Korba are helping the Jedi purify kyber crystals, which have been bled red, which we know about from the comics. We knew that Ahsoka could turn one of them white, or two of them white, because she does we see in the Ahsoka series. And in Rebels that she's got lightsabers that are white blades. This one involves singing and a relationship between a father and daughter. Very interesting stuff. I do not have a daughter. Colby does not have a daughter, but Aaron has two daughters. So Aaron, let's start with you. One word and overall reactions to this episode.
Oh, this one is tough because this was honestly my least favorite of them all.
Sure.
Interesting is what I would have to say, because just the idea that you could purify a kyber crystal with song. I mean, yes, we just came off a episode that we just discussed a couple moments ago where it was, music heals, and obviously music was healing the kyber in this, but it was not my favorite. It was struggling. I did. It was very cute. The daughter and the way she's just always constantly wanting to explore and have to guard herself from trying to keep. I saw a lot of my 10-year-old in that. My 10-year-old has ADHD and is constantly on trying to stay on guard, not to do what she's not supposed to do. And so I saw a lot of her in that. But it was interesting to say the least.
Excellent. I appreciate your honesty, Colby.
This is going to be so ironic because the word that I'm going to use is favorite, because this is, and it's not close, my favorite episode of the series. It should be a good conversation, right? Because we have polar opposite opinions.
The series or the season or
every episode of Visions.
Wow. I got to hear why.
I love it. First, the animation. I think it has such an incredible and unique look. It almost looked like those felt, right? When we were little, we would make these sort of felt boards with like felt figures. They looked like they were textured, almost like stuffed animals, but not. I love the look of the world, the blue sky with the white clouds and the incredible looking mountains. I just loved the design of all of it. I loved how the red kyber seemed to be calling out to Au. And the way I figured out how to say her name was by saying Auga and then just taking the G off. It's Au. So I'm going with that. It sounded like what the dad said. But it seemed like it was calling out to her, but not in a scary or threatening way. And we all know that's how temptation works, right? Mm-hmm. It's appealing at first. It wants to draw you in with the honey and make it look good. And that's how it seemed like in the beginning of the episode. I love the theme of confronting fear, but it wasn't necessarily Au confronting her fear. I didn't feel like she was afraid of the kyber or the force or anything. Mm-hmm. It was the dad that was afraid. Mm-hmm. The dad that was trying to protect his little girl. And don't think that the irony is lost on me, because it isn't, that the ending of this episode ends in a way that I just sat there talking about I didn't like, but we'll get to that, I'm sure. And I'll give my reasons for why I think it worked. But yeah, for all those reasons and many more, my absolute favorite.
Wow. You are polar opposites on this. I'm probably in the middle, but leaning more towards Aaron, just slightly. My word for this will be textured. The animation for this was really captivating, and I found myself thinking this had to be incredibly difficult and incredibly rewarding to produce and to animate and to create and to craft, because there's some visual things here that are quite masterful. I absolutely loved the Jedi Master at the beginning of the episode, the woman whose job is to take these kyber crystals and purify them, and her connections with Au. I love her. I thought she was a really cool character, like more than I would have expected. I like the idea of song, and because music really is so soulful and, soothes the savage beast, right? Including kyber crystals themselves. I really enjoyed that. I like the sort of trippy visualization inside the cave itself. Thought that was really, really cool. And of course, at the end, they have to have an emotional goodbye, which, it was hard enough seeing Jake Lloyd go through it when he was a kid in Phantom Menace. So I had to keep reliving that again. I hate that. But it's a real part of life, right? Again, separation is a natural thing. But usually when you separate, it doesn't mean forever, honestly, unless death is unfortunately a part of that. But still, the people live on. That being said, I don't have a ton more to say about this one. As much as I appreciate the texture, look of the animation, it was my least favorite because this sort of style doesn't necessarily resonate with me. But again, the craft of doing it and performing it and making it come to life is a talent I can't even imagine to comprehend or possess.
Well, I'm glad that you don't necessarily have much to say about, because that means I can say more. Is that right?
Please go ahead.
Because the one thing I left out of my previous comments was, to me, what the central theme of this episode was, and that was Au finding her voice and sort of being able to use her voice. And there was this one subtle little scene that I almost want to go back and rewatch to confirm that I'm remembering it correctly. But what I'm sure about is that through the beginning and most of the episode, she doesn't say anything. If she says something, it's very, very little. It's very few words. And what I'm guessing, I'm sort of wondering if I'm correct, so it'll be interesting if you guys could confirm it. She even has her mouth covered with like this sort of piece of cloth that comes up. It's almost like her shirt is just too high, and it sort of covers her mouth.
Yeah.
Visually, I think that's very important, because when she does get to the point where she's going to sing and she's going to purify these crystals, and the Jedi is there and her father is there, she takes that cloth off and she puts it down on the ground, and then she just starts to sing. I have a special place in my heart for music. I loved the music in this, and I love the fact that they used song to illustrate her finding her voice. And I think it's even more powerful that she's a girl, and that is, I think, should not be left out of the observation. Sort of like Aladdin and Jasmine's song of Speechless in the live action version. Powerful. That's a powerful moment and song and performance in that film. I liken this to that, because this is this little girl who's not been heard, who hasn't spoken, doesn't speak very much. And I don't think it's because her father is a bad guy. He's just a protective father, and he doesn't let her go out and spread those wings. But she finds that voice and she just lets it out. And in that, and in doing so, saves them and purifies this entire planet of Kyber, making it a good place without the threat. And that really is the heart of why I feel so powerfully about this episode. I just think that it was beautifully shown.
I'm so glad.
Well said.
Aaron, so you've heard both chatting about this. Colby much more effusive than me, but I really love your perspective, Colby. I really value that. Aaron, what do you think? I mean, certainly feel free to stay with where you're at. I mean, as we know, your no makes your yes have more weight. So it's totally okay not to love everyone.
Oh no, absolutely. And that's one thing that's incredible about Star Wars, is there's so much out there, and there's so much incredible stories being told right now, that it's okay if you don't like one, because somebody else may love it, like Colby, and it's just it makes the world go round. There's going to be stuff that I like that other people don't, and stuff that other people like that I don't. It's the way of life. Doesn't mean we can't get along and we can't enjoy Star Wars together.
That's right.
Absolutely. First off, Colby, well said, man. I love your passion for the episode. I do have to say it is a very different animation, but it's very beautifully animated, and the colors are so bright and so vibrant and so alive. in this episode. So it was visually, it was incredible to watch. So I gotta say that no matter what, the premise is what I had an issue with, which is ironic considering I just said 2 episodes ago we were just talking that music soothes Dan said it a moment ago, soothes the savage beast, and
Yes.
it heals the soul. To me, I just had an issue with song being used to purify the Kyber. Because all I'm seeing at that point is Ahsoka with these 2 crystals from an Inquisitor sitting there cross-legged, singing to them, trying to clear it, and I can't see that. I struggle with that, but this
this
relationship
is not canonical.
Exactly.
Right?
It's not canonical.
Yeah.
It's not canonical at all. Not that we've been told. So, but this is the relationship between the father and daughter was perfectly portrayed. It was perfectly portrayed. He was being protective of his daughter. He was guarding her. He was guiding her. He wanted nothing but the best for her. But at the same time, he knew if she wanted to sing, if she sang, it was devastating for everybody. Not it to me, it was almost an Elsa thing. If she, you know, it was a frozen kind of mirrored Frozen a little bit, but it was the whole idea. I mean, I love the Jedi in it. She was incredible. She kind of resembled Barriss in my opinion.
Sure.
But just I can't get past the singing. The singing was beautiful, don't get me wrong, but the premise of purifying the Kyber with the song, just it didn't do it for me. I struggle with wrapping my head around that one, and that is why I did not enjoy the episode, and I have to say it was my least favorite.
That's fair. You want to give it a letter grade?
Letter grade. I mean, because of how visually bright and beautiful the episode was, and the fact that they did portray the father-daughter relationship perfectly, I'm going to give it a C+. But that's where I'd have to leave it.
I totally respect that, Colby.
I think, Aaron, you bring up really good points, especially with the whole what we know about purifying Kyber crystals. That's a really good point that I hadn't thought of. But like Dan, to your point that it's not canonical, that I didn't even consider that, just because I'm not applying Star Wars rules when I watch these. I think that's probably what framed my viewing of it. But yeah, no spoiler alert. It's an A+ for me.
Yes, I don't think that was a spoiler. Yeah, we had a sense. I was tempted to give it a C+, but I do love the authenticity of the father-daughter relationship. It kind of reminded me of Luca for some reason, like the relationship between the father and his daughter. And it just, the animation it's not similar, but it reminded me of similar things, especially the beautiful colorization, the symbolism of going to the cave in the darkness and her singing. I actually like the singing aspect of it because, again, with Visions, I put on a different hat, like you said, Colby, different rules apply. But I also respect, Aaron, the idea that it was hard for you to make that leap.
Absolutely.
And that is important. That's very important. So I'll give it a very, very, very generous B-. I was leaning more in the C range, but Aaron or Colby, I think you convinced me to go that direction.
Yes.
Listening to Coffee with Kenobi, you are, with Dan Z, the podcast you're looking for. This is... yes.
So another fabulous conversation about Star Wars Visions. That I knew the two of you would bring your A games, and you both get A+ from me. You always do in everything that you do. So appreciate your friendship and your shows. Colby, please let everybody know what is going on with the Colby Cast and where they can find you.
Absolutely. Thank you always for giving the opportunity to talk about it. As I mentioned, my boys and I, my 20-something-year-old boys and I, sit down and talk about all kinds of stuff. Star Wars is very much represented. We talk about Marvel. I think we're going to gear up to talk about some DC stuff because it might be on the right track finally. Fingers crossed, we'll see. Time will tell. But yeah, anything pop culture, storytelling. We love music. We sometimes hockey will make an appearance when we have something to rant about a little bit. But yeah, we just want to share with the world the kind of stuff that we have, our conversations while we're sitting on the couch. So that's the Colby Cast in a nutshell. We have fun and we love talking to each other and sharing it with everybody out there. You can find it on all the podcatchers. You can find the Colby Cast on Twitter and Instagram at the Colby Cast. And you can find me, my personal Twitter and Instagram account at crosschecked3.
And thank you so much. And again, if you haven't listened to the Colby Cast episode with Colby's dad, hearing you and your dad and your boys together was talk about balm for the soul. Just absolutely delightful.
Well, thank you. It was a blast to record that, and it's absolute gold for us to have, sort of recorded and something that can always be preserved and listened to no matter what.
Forever. And I think he was being a little facetious because he kept saying this wasn't his thing, but he was great at it.
He's always been a talker. He was full of it. I'll tell you, he's one of the best talkers. So yeah, we just put a microphone in him that was in front of him. That was the only difference.
I love it. Well, and that's what you got to do when you got Aaron Harris around too, right? You got to put a mic in front of that guy. He's always going to say something funny or clever and insightful. Aaron, I appreciate you, and I'm just so grateful for you. I'm grateful for both of your friendships, both you and Colby. But Aaron, tell us where we can find Star Wars Reactions in case anybody didn't get it all last week when David was on the show, and where they can find you too.
All right. Well, definitely. I got to say thanks for having me on, Dan, again, and great talking to you again, Colby. Star Wars Reactions, you could find us anywhere you find podcasts. We release weekly discussing anything and everything Star Wars. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter at SW Reactions Pod, Instagram, Pinterest, and on Tumblr at SW Reactions. You can email us, of course. We're always open on email, swreactions@gmail.com. I know you can always find me on Twitter at TAHarris121079. And I want to say something real quick, Dan, before I turn it back over to you. First off, congratulations, 10 years, man. It's incredible. It is, you have done a tremendous job. You've blessed a ton of people throughout these 10 years. And my hat's off to you because I can honestly say I would not be sitting on the other side of this microphone doing what I do if it wasn't for you. And you have had a huge impact as a friend and as a podcaster and as a mentor on my life. And I just wanted to say thank you, dude, because you are incredible and you deserve all the praise on this 10th anniversary. And I can't wait to see where the next 10 years take you.
Oh gosh. Well, Aaron, man, you're going to get me choked up. Thank you. That's very, very kind of you. Thank you so much.
Well, while you compose yourself, I'm going to say everything he just said. Ditto. And I'll just add that, Dan, you're the standard that we all strive for. So keep up the great work. Yes. And thank you for your excellent example and your friendship. And 10 more years.
Well, hey, love you guys. Thank you so much. That was so kind of you.
This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company or Lucasfilm Limited. It is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars, all names, sounds, and any other Star Wars related items are registered trademarks and or copyrights of Disney and their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Coffee with Kenobi unless otherwise indicated.
This is the podcast you're looking for.
There's no one here. Move along.